It's before 10. It's the home run segment of the biggest breakfast show anywhere. It's the Niger, Cold City FM 92.9 Breakfast Show, Thursday edition. Welcome back. Okay. Today we are looking into a topic that affects each and every one of us. Talk about climate change. Yes. The country, as we know, is blessed with abundant natural resources, but we also face the pressing challenge of climate change. From increasing temperatures to unpredictable rainfall patterns, the effects are evident, just way too evident. From unpredictable weather patterns to the threat of erosion, we are seeing the effects right here in our communities. But rather than focus mainly on the problems, today we are going to look at the solutions. Yes, we are talking about climate change mitigation strategies right here at home. And we have some guests in the studio who have hung around from the time we ran the newspaper review segment till about now. Talking about Mr. Udochukwu Egwim, Head of Programs, South Saharan Social Development Organization, SSDO. Good morning to you once again.
Yeah, good morning once again. Good morning, listeners.
Okay, and then of course, Mr. Okechukwu Ajah, Climate Researcher and Business Development Associate, SSDO. That's South Saharan Social Development Organization, right?
Yeah. Good morning, Enugu.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start off. First of all, how we're looking at climate change. How does climate change impact us and the environment? I remember one of the general courses or general studies, GS courses that we did in school, man in his environment, man and the environment. So how does climate change impact us and impact our environment as well? Let me begin with you, Mr. Ajah.
Okay, I would like to begin by saying that we still have a few people who don't even know what climate change is. Okay. And once this background is not established, we might not be able to push further. Climate change has to do with a significant long-term change in temperature, weather patterns, and even the environment. And this is mainly caused by human activities that has to do with biofuels and the rest. So if this is established, we'll get to know that maybe just a brief change in weather pattern doesn't refer to climate change.
Okay,
it has to do with a significant long-term change.
Okay, so what makes it climate change? Okay, what makes it significant? I was going to ask would be
the long term. Long term. Okay. It's not something because the weather is hot today.
Okay.
And you say, but a long term, then we refer to it as climate change. So now back to the question you're asking is climate change. The realities of climate change is here with us. The other day, I was just looking about at a city. Some of us must have heard about Jakarta. Jakarta is the capital city of Indonesia. And that city is referred to as the world's most famous sinking city. The city is already sinking, and annually, each 40% of the city sinks 25% and 25 centimeters deep every year. Now, there's a lot that you can learn from the city of Jakarta. And maybe as we continue, I'm going to still stress on one or two. Like we do say, wise men learn from observation. There's even the government policy aspect, because one of the things the government did in reaction to what is happening there is to start building a new city. A new city, I think, is Borneo. That's the name of the new city. But they did nothing to mitigate the challenges that climate change was bringing to them. One of the causes for climate change and the impact of climate change for them was because the city is overpopulated due to urbanization, and the source of their drinking water and the water they use in that city is from the ground, under the ground. So the realities of climate change is here. You see it maybe sometimes here in Enugu. I've been to discuss with people, I've been to communities for sensitization. Sometimes when the youths are poor, people might say the gods are angry. Maybe the gods are not happy with us. Or it's because of the iniquities or the sins that the people in the land have committed. And that is why we are not getting the yields that we are meant to get. but not knowing that climate change is actually happening. Okay. And if it is not mitigated, it is going to stay. There's the downside of the climate change will keep affecting us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ajah. Let me come to you now, Mr. Egwim. He already talked about the impact in the environment, and with a reference point to Indonesia. I'd like you to narrow it down more to our own community, where we are, our own Jerusalem, this place. What will be the impact on man, on all of us as Nigerians, and our environment?
Okay. When he was speaking, he mentioned people assume that the gods are wise. I'll say the gods are angry. Yeah, the gods are actually angry for foolishness and not being able to take proactive steps. You see a problem happening, you know that this problem is happening, and you allow it to keep happening till it gets worse. For Nigeria as our country, many people don't seem to have a grasp of the concept of climate change and don't seem to also feel it, what is happening. If you are observant, you will notice that as of last year, there was no Harmattan season.
Yeah.
It was as if Harmattan went on holidays. Maybe Christmas came early for Harmattan. The usual, when I was growing up, your mouth gets broken. You know that Harmattan is there because every child has their lips broken or coated with thick layers of Vaseline, and the feet are all white and all that. And of course, you can't take a cold bath in the morning. So, because this also is a pointer to what he said at his opening, that is a significant long-term change. If it were to be just a weather condition, it would have just been one day you miss Harmattan for one day, the next day it comes back. But this is a serious matter, and it's been experienced in different ways. When I think last week we were talking about, we had a program and we were looking at on the same issue, looking at some of the effects in Enugu, for instance. You see that we saw some pictures from the ministry where we've had erosions, where buildings have caved in and just fall into the gully and all that. And again, even in the country, may not be referring to the Southeast in particular, but we've noticed that the prices of food have gone up. It may not be directly just linked to the prices of fuel, the price of fuel and the price of transportation, but can be linked to other factors happening in the farmlands. People always say, okay, it's the security issues, insecurity. It's not just insecurity. I was speaking to one of the coordinators, the president of the Young Farmers Association, Enugu State, a few days ago, and he mentioned that there was, someone mentioned that there's a business venture they did. They planted maize, hoping some young people came together, put resources together to plant maize, hoping that they'll be able to get yield from it. It didn't do well. In fact, they lost money.
Why?
And because
why was it
they had earlier predicted, following from evaluated experiences, that the rains will come maybe the usual time. Okay, maybe after the first rain, normally people start planting. But first rain came and no rain came after. And it became an issue. And the crops didn't do well. It died off. They just few got grown. So this is the impact, even in our society, is enormous. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. I don't want us to dwell on all of that because I'm a progressive. When I say I'm a progressive, I want us to chart the way forward. But then, what are climate change mitigation strategies that could be employed? Like you say, when we apply this, it would work, and we'll find out how to go about that.
Okay. I would like to simplify some of these mitigation strategies because it is also good for the layman out there to understand, instead of just speaking in just terminologies or climate change terminologies. And at the same time, we'll bring it to our local context and realities here in Enugu State. One of the ways in which we can mitigate climate change will have to do with renewable energy. There's something we call renewable energy. There's one of the major causes of climate change is the use of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, for my listeners out there, has to do with natural gas oil and all. This has a way of emitting heat into the atmosphere. But now, if we are transitioning into renewable energy, we are making use of solar. And Enugu has enough sunlight. Sometime last year, I was in Aniri. There's a community in Aniri where they sell rice. I was impressed with what I saw. Although this rice milling, there's a way we sift out stones from rice. Most of the guys there were making use of the normal fuel, but there's one person who was making use of solar. And it was giving him the same results, and I believe at a lower cost. I was even able to also do buy rice, and they sifted everything using solar. So this, by incorporating solar energy as an alternative, it is going to reduce the greenhouse gases emission into the atmosphere. Secondly, we should also be cautious that energy efficiency. Energy efficiency has to do with, if you are not making use of energy per time, why not just off it?
What do you mean?
Yes. If this place I'm going to is trekkable, why drive? Why not make use of your bicycle as an alternative, as a source of even exercise? So these are some of the ways we can. Sometimes, even if you work in an organization, they can say we have a staff bus. A staff bus can carry up to, let's say, 30 people. If it can carry, instead of every staff driving his car to the office.
Okay, so not driving the cars. What do you think? What problem?
Because
do you
of
think
the
solving?
The smoke and all these things has a way of still going back up there.
Okay, so you talked about renewable energy.
Yes, and also energy efficiency.
Energy efficiency. I know that growing up, I'm just going to ask.
Yes.
Do you think that urbanization has a negative place in climate change?
Of course.
I'm asking this question because growing up, I remember a particular campaign. Yes, they foresaw days coming like this. The gas on yonko, so they were asking people to plant palm trees and all of that. But let's talk about afforestation and deforestation at this point. What do you think would be their places in climate change and mitigating climate change?
Okay. He mentioned about using renewables. And yes, afforestation is one of the ways to mitigate climate change. There's what we call heat island. Heat island, places where, in the past, when you are developing a property, in Enugu now, in fact, in Nigeria, you have 1,001 estate developers. But when you walk into some of those estates, you don't see any green zone. But if you look at the master plan of major cities, there is always a green zone and all that. Someone was mentioning that if not for that Obara Square area, at least within the urban area, we wouldn't have had a green zone, at least around independent layout. So those things are plans to ensure that there's what we call have enough carbon traps, have enough cool areas within the city. Yes, and one of the ways to do this is afforestation. We've tried, and other organizations have also tried the approach of afforestation. We did one in partnership with Nnamdi Azikiwe University to plant trees at a particular zone. We've also tried that at Ogo area and all that, because these trees serve as carbon sinks, serve as also helps to cool the atmosphere. You know that just like what he mentioned, there are about 22 cities in the country and the world where you don't drive cars. There are no cars. It will look weird if you introduce that in Nigeria. But those cities, people live there, they don't complain. Some of those cities are just surrounded by water like Venice and the rest, but they're just land. People walk, people cycle, no cars, no emission. I was in Port Harcourt several years ago, and man, I woke up and I found out that the clothes I wanted to wear had black soot all over it. I went to visit a relation, and he told me that this is what they see. So if it could, okay, I came out to the balcony outside, and I stepped on the balcony. I could see my footprints because of the black suit.
Really, that bad?
That bad. So beyond just having the mitigation strategies we have, like afforestation, what's it called, use of renewables and all that, there is also a place of policy. Last week, we were championing the development of the Enugu State climate change policy in partnership with the Society for Planet and Prosperity and the Enugu State Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. One thing I would even say is that Enugu State has taken an initiative, a good step in the right direction, to even consider changing the Ministry of Environment and nomenclature to Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. Okay. And I looked at the 2022 state budget, and I discovered it was also budgeted as a section on its own, climate change. And the development of the policy is also a good step in the right direction, because that policy holds people accountable, defines how players in the sector operate, which covers all the mitigation factors. You talked about urbanization. Urbanization, yes, will definitely happen. You can't stop it. Like I keep saying, climate change, you can't stop. But how do you mitigate? You can't stop extraction of crude oil and natural gas, but you can control how it's being done. It's being done in a clean way. There was a research carried out sponsored by Action Aid, who is also our donor partners on the project we're implementing in Enugu State. And they discovered that most of the food products, agricultural products from Nigeria, cannot be exported.
Why?
Why? Because they don't just look at the process, the product, but the process. It's just like when blood diamond, people were getting diamond from Sierra Leone, and initially there was no interest on how it was gotten. The people started raising their voices. They use child labor for this. They actually kill people. They sack villages, and they now because before you buy diamond on the international market, you have to check the process of which is. So before you sell palm oil, most of the palm oil I heard about, 80-something% or so, are being rejected. Once it gets to the airport, they check it's being rejected because they test for it. There are processes. There are people that work on that, But these are issues that policy can fix, and taking the right steps. Just like you talked about afforestation, we used to have Jets Club, Press Club, and Maths Club in schools. Then I went to a unity school. But there's no active environmental or climate club where people know that at least let's plant trees within our school or within a section of our school. There was a Kenyan woman that died some years back. She planted, I think, over 10,000 trees.
10,000?
Yeah, before she died. Yeah. So climate change is a whole lot. Mitigation strategies are a whole lot, from policies to afforestation to the people themselves, the citizens themselves.
Okay, interesting. I'm glad you talked about agriculture too, but we know that there is another level of agriculture that we have in the society. So what is climate smart agriculture? And how can it help farmers contribute to mitigating climate change, Mr. Ajah?
Okay, before I'll attend to this question, I just want to add to what he has said.
Okay.
We should embrace this culture of planting trees. We're not just doing it for the cameras, but we are doing it for the future unborn, the future that is yet to come. There's something I said some time ago. I don't know if it's not here, but the man said the father, who is late already, kept planting trees. He was looking at it as a hobby. But right now, you see people cutting down trees. Like for him, I think the rule the father gave him is, I think for every tree that he cut, he should plant 10. That he's doing it, that there are some trees he planted years ago, and the trees are now big. One of the things trees does is like, they also secrete oxygen.
Yes.
Yes, and there's all these fossil and all what we're saying has to do with carbons. Now, to attend to your question on climate smart agriculture, one of the things subsistence farmers or even farmers especially in rural communities do, and I think our organization has been privileged to work with these rural farmers. We engage them in agroecological practices. That's what we call it agroecology. Agroecology is an innovative way of farming where we incorporate these climate smart practices. Like, for example, we can look at this place and we say, look at the kind of crops that you can do well here, and look at some innovative practice you can employ while carrying out this. That's just part of it. At the same time, because climate change came with some diseases that attack crops. These are some aspects that we've not been able to discuss today. Like, there are some diseases that affect crops because of the change in climate. So you teach these farmers how to also combat it by knowing the kind of crops they are going to plant and all this. These are some of the things we've actually done. So climate smart agriculture has to do with some agroecological farming and practices.
Agroecological farming and practices.
Yes,
you shared a short story about a boy whose father asked to keep planting trees when one goes. Where can he plant such trees? When we have houses, we have structures, we have gutters and gullies, things are coming up on daily basis. Where do you suggest these trees could be planted?
Okay. Urbanization is, as I would say, is actually a blessing, at the same time a curse. Because if urbanization is not properly planned, it also comes with its own downsides. So planting of trees, for me, I think it has to do with a private-public partnership. More especially, maybe in our urban centers now, it's becoming a challenge. But in our rural communities, we can still start from there. Because sometimes we travel and we see huge expanse of land that farming. Some people, even because of farming, they still bring down trees. Because it is something that we have to say. Maybe there's a large farm and the person wants to expand his farmland. And because of expanding the farmland, you have to bring down trees so that you have enough land. So this leads us to this creating a comprehensive policy. Some of these policies can be said, this place can be marked as a place where that you don't bring down any trees here. Let it just be. Let it just remain forested the way it was.
What if he fells that tree and plants another one somewhere, because that one is going to cause an obstruction in his farm?
Just like you rightly pointed out, policies serve as framework for operations. We have Enugu State, Housing Development Corporation and all that. Estates have to get some licenses before they start that. So if I look at your building plan for the estate, I should be able to see some green zones. I should be able to see that you have plans to plant some trees. Before now, you have playgrounds in schools. It was part of what will make the Ministry of Education approve your schools. But there are schools within my area that it's just a building and it's little car park, no playground. So policies also set things straight. And looking for where to plant trees. The rural areas already have trees. The lady I talked about, of blessed memory, Wangari Maathai, he set up an organization, Green Belt, in Kenya. Until date, since 1977, have been able to plant 51 million trees. 51 million trees. They will hit a target of 30 million trees in 30 years. And you can't tell me that those trees were planted in rural Kenya. So it's a conscious effort, a very conscious effort. Like, find out areas within the city where you can plant some level of trees around when I stayed some time in Calabar, and you discover that as you're walking along the road, you can walk under a shade for distances. The side of the road is there. At least it helps you trap the carbon coming directly from the
But those ones will be coming from the government, because a mere citizen cannot just go and
no, they can't
on the road.
So I can decide to champion a cause to plant trees, and I go and meet the ministry.
That's what I'm saying.
They welcome.
There has to be a collaboration.
Sure.
An individual cannot just wake up and begin to. I think it was Barrister Sullivan as the governor of Enugu State, he did it in Enugu State, and we all enjoyed.
Individuals can plant around their homes.
Their own homes. That's it. Okay, so let's talk about waste management. Why is proper waste disposal management and recycling crucial in our fight against climate change?
Okay, so Yeah, so recycling is a big issue that people don't seem to understand. And it's a big issue not because it's just waste management is not just an issue because it's causing waste everywhere, but it's also an economic issue. It brings economic value. About a month ago, we had a training that we called upcycling and recycling. So we had a facilitator from EcoCyclers, also a private-owned company in Enugu that's been dealing with recycling. Teach young people, about 30 young people, how to upcycle plastics. We focus on recycling a lot, but you can pick plastic bottles and turn them to what's it called? Furnitures. Very nice looking furnitures and some other things. So waste management is an issue. Ideally we're supposed to have what we call sanitary landfills, but I don't think I've seen anyone in Nigeria. What we have is borough sites where what's it called? Laterite was extracted, and because it is now borough, it becomes a dump site. What we have is indiscriminate dumping, but we don't have any sanitary landfill. And sanitary landfill even gives you value because you're able to sort waste, sell the waste that you've sorted, generate methane gas, which you can also sell for cooking and all the rest. So I think we've not gotten there. It's still a long way to the ideal situation. Yeah.
More so, we had a recent youth consultative forum on climate change. There's something striking that the climate expert there also said, that it costs more to introduce waste into the society. Just look at the bottled water you drink. The packaging costs more than the liquid content in. So this is the economic and the side of this. So if we can have a way, someone suggested, like, instead of disposing this waste, gather them in a place. Maybe the companies that manufacture these things can, like, if maybe I buy 10 bottles of these bottled waters and I'm done drinking the content, I keep it. If you are coming to take it from me, you give me some incentives from bringing it instead of throwing it.
So when I'm going to buy another one,
yes,
I take
it Yes, you take it, and instead of just throwing it as a waste, because it's also an economic waste, in as much as it's also a waste.
Okay, time is no longer an ally, because I was just going to ask some questions about civil society organization, and especially the advocacy, what you do specifically. But then we're going to be wrapping up, and I'd like to get your messages to the government, organizations, and individuals in the community in 30 seconds. Is that possible, Mr. Egwim?
Sure.
Let me start.
So what I would say is that I'm not a fan of putting all the responsibility on the government. Climate change mitigation starts with you. It starts with you. The government has its own part to play, but I believe the individuals, citizens also have their part to play, and you have to play it consciously.
You have to play it consciously.
So
Can you tell us exactly what to do? Mr. Ajah.
Okay, for me, I would say every action counts when it comes to climate change. So we owe it to ourselves and the future generation to make Enugu and the world at large a better place.
A better place. Okay, thank you so much for being here and being a part of Breakfast Show today. I believe that our listeners have learned a thing or two to help dispose your waste properly. Avoid anything that will emit gas into the atmosphere or smoke. Yeah, they are all part of it. Okay, so whatever we have to do to protect the environment, please do it. It is very important. Thank you so much for being here. We've been speaking with gentlemen from SSDO, that's Social Development Organization, SSDO, Mr. Udochukwu Egwim, Head of Programs, South Saharan Social Development Organization, and Mr. Okechukwu Ajah, Climate Researcher and Business Development Associate, South Saharan Social Development Organization. Thank you so much for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
When we call you again, please do oblige, because we still want to expand this. It's an evolving issue. We'd like to thank you very much for being a part of Breakfast Show this beautiful Thursday morning, as produced by Jude Obu. Special salutations to you. And then, of course, my supervisor, the General Manager, CCFM, Joy Obitlata, and the Executive Producer, Zonal Director, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, Enugu Sono Station, Mr. Okechukwu Ajah. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We'll be taking the news in just a minute. Your God's Gift on Radio, Onyinye Onogo is my name. Good morning.